Good evening, everyone. So, all of you who are comfortable, you're welcome to switch on your videos, and I would love to see your beautiful faces. And so, today we're going to be talking about something very, very interesting and something which I believe all of us have a very personal investment in, and that is relationships, love, romance, and how to rise in love. So, we're going to keep this session very, very interactive. So, first, I'll be talking about certain aspects of this topic, and then we'll go into a question answer segment where you can ask whatever questions that come up with you, or some things that you've noticed or observed in people or in your own lives, and you seek more clarity on that. So, what really is rising in love? So recently, this month, I started this series on social media on falling in love versus rising in love. So this is something which is very close to my heart. And since I was a child growing up, I always craved having good relationships, especially a good married life. That is something which I felt was so important for people's mental state and happiness, because unhappy relationships and marriages caused a lot of havoc in life. So I started observing people around me, people who were happy in relationships, people who were unhappy in relationships, as well as I studied a lot and read a lot of books, studied under teachers to understand how to create long lasting happy relationships. So that from this need to understand that is arose this concept of rising in love. So to understand rising in love, first it's very important to talk about what is falling in love. So falling in love primarily refers to relationships which are extremely uh, dependent and completely enmeshed with each other. So falling in love relationships are the one where we tend to lose ourselves in the relationship, where we start eventually feeling unhappy, where we start feeling like something is missing. So initially, it starts out with a lot of excitement where, we constantly make efforts to either please the other person or, express a lot of love for the other person and trying to make them happy. But slowly, eventually, it starts depleting us. It actually becomes resentful. It could be from my side or from my partner's side as well. So, losing in love, falling in love is basically losing our own identity. And there are different levels to this actually. So, imagine that there is a continuum, okay, a straight line. On one corner, there is falling in love, which is the extreme corner, and this represents people who are so hungry to be loved, who feel such a lack of love within themselves that they feel they have to do whatever it takes to get it in their relationship, whether it's compromising themselves, making sure their partner's needs are more important than theirs, and revolving their entire life around the other person. So that is this left extreme of this continuum, the falling in love. Now in the center is rising in love, which is a very balanced state, which I'll come to later on. And on the other extreme right hand corner of this continuum is refusing to be in love, refusing to open to love. So this continuum basically has this three demarcations, and in between there are different levels. So we might not be at any of the extremes, but we can be in between as well, where I don't fully lose myself in relationships, but yes, I do tend to get into pleasing the other person or neglecting myself. And you can also notice this not just in romantic relationships, but also with your children. So many times, with our children, we tend to just start revolving our entire life around them, completely neglecting ourselves. That is again this whole concept of falling in love. And then let's talk about the right extreme, which is refusing to open yourself to love. So that is another unhealthy measure. of this continuum, where either so in this other extreme, either we've been hurt or we've gone through some difficult experiences in our childhood or romantic relationships that that hurt is something that we could not deal with. So we decided to close to love. We don't open our hearts even when we are in relationships, or we're too afraid to get into relationships because we believe that I only have a tendency to straight away fall in love. I tend to lose myself in relationships. That's why I would rather sit here on this extreme, not opening myself. That is the other extreme. Now we come to the most amazing, the balanced place in the center, which is rising in love. So, rising in love is a space where we actually realize that we are two people, two individuals who are coming together in a relationship, who are complete in themselves. We don't need to complete each other. We are both complete in ourselves, and we come together to share our completeness, to share our joys, to share our happiness, to share our love. But we're not dependent on the other to give me love. My vessel is filled with my own love. And now I can go into this relationship and share love. So, this is the concept behind rising in love, where two individuals who maintain their identity and then come into relationships. Of course, there are certain levels of adjustments that happen. There's certain levels of, coming midway, sometimes honoring the other person's point of view, sometimes honoring and standing for my point of view. However, that's a very perfect blend. In that process, even when you're giving up your point of view, you are very aware and very centered in doing that. You're always very in charge of yourself and not completely getting carried away in the other person. So, that is the concept behind rising in love. And all of you today who are here on this call, I want you to take a minute to actually close your eyes and step into an awareness about where you are on this continuum: falling in love, rising in love, or refusing to open to love. So, awareness is the first and most important step to creating or changing ourselves. And admitting that I am a person who falls in love is very, very important and not at all something that we need to be ashamed of. Because all of us at different stages of our life have been there, and these are just childhood programmings that are running our life. So there's nothing to feel ashamed about or nothing to feel bad about. But awareness and acceptance that which relationships of my life do I tend to do that is very, very important. Catching yourself in those patterns is very, very important. So just get a knowing which are those relationships where you start compromising yourself to make the other person happy. It could be romantic love, it could be your parents, it could be friends, it could be your children, any relationship where you start losing and compromising yourself to make the other person happy, because somewhere it comes from that person's happiness is more important than yours. And I want you to just go ahead and mention in the chat, which relationships do you notice that in? And also, as you are getting aware of your own patterns, I want you to go ahead. If there are any questions that are coming to your mind, you can either unmute yourself and ask, or you can also mention in the chat specific questions that you notice in your relationships that hold you back or create problem in your life. And then we can discuss ways of how to deal with them. mom, romantic, romantic and parents, parents. Yes, even parents is definitely one of those relationships where we tend to find it very difficult to stay balanced and be centered. So, is there any particular thing that you notice in your relationship that you would like to talk more about? You can just mention in the chat. All right, so if there are no questions for now, so I'm going to move on to the next part where I'm going to share. Okay, so a question that is coming is a resistance to express from fear of being taken for granted, not being hungry for love. How to handle that? So you can just unmute yourself and explain this question a little more. That when you mean a resistance to express from fear of being taken for granted, what do you mean by that? How will expressing be taken for granted? Too much attachment. So yes, so too much attachment is also, it's important to notice that a lot of attachment happens where when there's something that we are totally dependent on them for. What is that thing that you're totally dependent on that parent for? So is it feeling secure? Is it love? Is it feeling a sense of respect, attention? What is it that you seek from that particular relationship? So just notice that. Emotional support, emotional security. Let me just unmute you if you're not able to.
My question meant that there is this resistance to express because there is a high chance that what you said will be taken for granted, and it will not be you express something and they don't take it fully, or in the sense that they don't accept it and just neglect it, or just pass it by. And then you're also hungry for love, so it gets awkward because you're not able to because you think that if I express myself it's of no use. And when you express, then there is a high chance that it won't be given the pedestal you want. So it's kind of a mixed bag.
Okay. So it's very important in this to notice that, first of all, if I'm expressing something, if I have conviction in what I am expressing or what I'm asking for, then others will be able to respect it as well. So first of all, that conviction in self, that faith in self to be taken seriously is very, very important. To be able to differentiate the ideas of my parents. I think you're talking about parents, right? So I'll explain with parents example. So when there is this whole ideas of parents and my ideas so enmeshed that I don't know what my point of view is anymore, and I just accept my parents' point of view as the only thing that is available for me, that start creating a loss in my standing, my conviction. So first, it's very important to identify what do I really want, which is keeping aside all the other voices. What is it that I really want to do? What is it that I really like doing? What gives me peace? What gives me satisfaction? What gives me contentment? What is my passion? Everything. So I need to be able to first separate my voice from the voices of others by, and journaling is one very good way to do that. Just writing in your journal what you feel at different points of time. What do you think? What are your thoughts? And just notice how we ourselves start countering ourselves. Those are the voices of people around us, the voices that counter us. So use journaling to clear your voice first, and then only when you express, the other person can also listen and respect your point of view. All right. So, Sangeeta, would you like to explain your question? Are you able to unmute yourself? Okay, try now.
Yeah, hi. Hi, Geet.
Hi. Hi.
Hi. Yeah, so I feel I have a lot of emotional, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can.
I feel I have a lot of emotional dependency on my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's been a year and a half since my dad has gone, and I've always been very emotionally dependent on her. If there's anything that's troubling me or anything, the first person I reach out, just like a listening part of, just for her to listen, is
Mm-hmm.
just her. So I'm that way very attached, and in one way it's good, but sometimes I don't like that emotional dependency because I feel I sometimes trouble her because now she's on her own. I don't like to just go on expressing all my emotions to her, especially when I'm worried and everything. I don't want her to be stressed out, but a lot of
Yeah.
emotional dependence is on my mom.
Hmm.
So can you tell me how to deal with that?
Yes, absolutely. So, that emotional dependency on someone outside happens when I don't connect within myself, when I am not my own sounding board, first of all.
But we all need people to talk to now and connect to.
So, it's very important, and it's not talked enough that how we need to talk to ourselves first.
Hmm.
Nobody ever tells us this. We always hear,
Hmm.
no, it's good you go and talk to, have
Hmm.
friends,
Hmm.
empty out yourself. But
Hmm.
that's
Yeah.
not enough. That's not as powerful as talking to yourself. When you're going to start talking to yourself, the level of
Hmm.
clarity that you're going to get, because it's actually between you and your inner self.
Hmm.
And
Right.
you are just going and talking to somebody else who has no understanding of what is actually going on here. But when you
Absolutely.
start this dialogue with yourself, there'll be answers that will start coming from yourself. The
Okay.
kind of solutions which are for your highest good, which nobody outside can give you.
Okay.
That channel has never been created, and that
Hmm.
channel comes from inside.
Okay.
When I start connecting with my inner self, so like we use the terms conscious mind, unconscious mind, and the superconscious in simpler terms to
Hmm.
understand. I'll use these terms. So the conscious and the inner conscious, the unconscious, the dialogue between them, when you start connecting with your inner self, you actually access the channel of the superconscious, from where your highest good and your highest solutions come from. Once you start investing your time in these dialogues, then slowly, this emotional dependency on others will cease to exist. And then it's not like you don't have to go and talk to anyone, but you will be in charge of yourself. Sometimes you will choose to go and talk, and sometimes you're like, it's okay, I can handle this on my own.
So, like, how do you talk to yourself? Like, do you like look in a mirror and
So,
talk to
so,
yourself? Like, what? How do you do that?
so there are many ways that you can start doing it. So mirror work is one very good way to start doing it. Louise Hay, and she
Yeah.
has this amazing book, The Mirror Work, which you can start with. And even I have some videos, and I think on my YouTube channel about the self love, where I talk about this inner dialogue, how to start with this inner dialogue and the friendship with yourself. So that is one way. Then journaling definitely is an amazing, amazing way. You can start with that. Then tapping is another way.
Oh,
So how in different, I don't know if you've attended the other sessions where we do tapping on ourselves. So at that
yeah.
time, what I always say is, don't try to find solutions from your conscious brain. Don't try to find ideas
Right.
and solutions. When you
Right.
tap, your
Hmm.
unconscious is able to speak up. And you start getting clarity from within. So that's why normally what happens in tapping sessions is, by the end people feel way calmer and there are a lot of solutions. Oh, this is what I need to be doing.
Right.
So that's how it helps us access that space of us. So these are some of the ways that you can, breathing techniques, meditation, all of this help us connect back to ourselves.
Yeah.
So
With
you can start
meditation,
doing
how
that.
do you? I meditate, but with meditation, how can you talk to yourself?
So in
Meditate.
meditation,
Yeah.
in my sessions, I teach in every session the healing garden technique, in which every morning you can start going there and doing things in your own space. That's a perfect way to, connect with yourself. It's
Okay.
called the healing garden visualization. I do it almost in every session of mine,
Is
tapping session.
is it on the YouTube?
Yes, it's in YouTube as well. All my
Okay.
sessions mostly end with that healing garden space.
Okay.
So you can
Okay.
go there every morning and spend some time with yourself. Visually. I mean, it's not like you're actually going there. It's just all happening,
Right. Right. Right.
visualization wise. So that is how in meditation you can. So initially through just meditation, it's difficult. If you're doing just breathing exercises, it sometimes takes time to still the mind. But even when you're meditating, you're accessing all these, the unconscious and the superconscious. When you reach theta states, you are
Right.
accessing.
Yeah. That's a
And
nice thing. What you
yeah,
said about talking. I'm
yeah,
going to
and
try
you
it.
can also write a question before you go into meditation. Write it in a diary and then go
Okay.
into a meditation, and you'll be amazed by the kind of answers that come up.
Wow.
And
Very
then
good.
there's another way, you can just put a question under your pillow before you
Okay.
sleep at night, and just with the intention that, through my dreams, please give me an answer to this. And, so the unconscious communicates through these things.
Yes. Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Thank
yeah,
you.
great. All right. So I think we don't have any other questions. So now let me talk about what are some of the simple ways that we can all do to rise in love. Okay. So there are 5 ways that I want to share with you all. So the first way is just finding some simple time every day to do something only with yourself. That is one easiest way to start building that relationship with yourself, and making sure you stay in your body and not outside trying to be with others all the time. And when I say spending time with yourself, I don't mean being on the mobile or doing something. Being with yourself is actually just either being in nature without anything, and just noticing your thoughts and having the inner dialogue, as we just discussed, me and Sangeeta. So that is spending time with yourself. It could be dancing if you like, it could be singing. These are all ways in which your inner self actually connects with you. So doing any of these things, and just make sure you spend some time. It could be, if you are working, your commute time. Use that time to just be with yourself. Keep your phone aside for some time and just talk to yourself. That really, really helps us in filling ourselves first before getting into relationships. Then the second point is, when we are in relationships, it's not always important that we start compromising our viewpoints or always fight that my viewpoint is the correct one. So finding the middle path is very, very important. Sometimes we respect the other person's point of view, knowing that we can agree to disagree. I don't need to invalidate myself, or I don't need to invalidate the other person. We can both be correct, because as it is, there's no such thing as the absolute truth, and it's just an illusion. Then the third point is creating loving boundaries. This is a point which is talked about a lot. However, applying in life is very, very important. What are loving boundaries? Loving boundaries is the kind of expectations, intentions that I set for myself and people. What are the things that I condone? What are the things I do not condone? How and what till what limit do I allow people to influence me, and to what level I do not allow people to get into my space. So that is all what loving boundaries mean. It's not like having a brick wall around you where you're completely aloof from the world. Imagine it as a very beautiful glass permeable wall where, whatever you see outside which feels very enriching, it's always, you can just take it. But if anything feels that it is not comfortable and it is not to your highest good, then you do not need to allow it to enter into your inner circle, your inner space. That is what it means by creating loving boundaries. Honoring yourself and your space. To be able to say no is also a part of creating loving boundaries. That if something is not feeling comfortable, but I will not keep saying yes just to please the other person. Pleasing myself is of great importance. Making sure I am happy is of the greatest importance, because if I am not happy with myself, neither can I make anyone else happy, nor will anyone else want to make me happy. Because everything inside me gets projected outside. People will only treat me as I treat myself. And if I don't respect myself, nobody is going to come and respect me. They will know that, okay, she allows herself to be a pushover, so that's what I'll also do, push her over. So that's what loving boundaries means, having clear definitions of what you accept and what you don't accept in your life. Then the fourth point is not making the other person your life's project. So many times, when we get into relationships, or especially all our close relationships, whether it's parents, we will keep focusing on how they need to improve themselves or how they need to take care of their health, while we might be neglecting ourselves completely and not doing those same things. Similarly with a partner, their dreams, what they want to achieve in their life, we will make that our life's goals. And what about your life? What about your growth? We just completely neglect that. Similarly with children, with children we tend to feel, I have to do everything for them, and what will they do without me? And that's absolutely incorrect. With children also, it actually becomes a complete enmeshing of those boundaries if you do not let them develop their own voice. So that is why in all relationships, you have to remain for yourself as well. You should be your project always. What are you learning new? What are you working on in yourself? What is your next goal in life? What do you enjoy? What do you want to enjoy? So make sure you think and ask these questions for yourself rather than always focusing on the other person. And the fifth point is not being clingy in relationships. Make sure that you, especially when it comes to our romantic relationships, it's very important to create space to do things separately. And this is something which is never discussed. People have this notion that in relationships, we have to do together, we have to laugh together, we have to dance together, eat together, roam together, everything's together in marriages. But that's absolutely unhealthy. In marriages as well, you need to have your individual space, because two people are very unique and their own ideas of joy, happiness, love can be very different. And each person needs to find ways to feed themselves. So giving space to, either spend time with your friends or, spending time with your own family, alone time, all of that is very, very important. So these are the 5 points on how to rise in love that you can actually start applying immediately in your life. And does anyone have any questions on this? You're welcome. So detached attachment with example. Yes. So that is a very, very interesting concept, and detached yet attached is something which even I've taken years to understand and learn and to be able to finally apply in my life. Detached yet attached means that I'm not dependent on the other person for anything. However, I want to have them in my life and I choose to do things together. But if that person is not available, that doesn't affect me. That does not bother me. That is the meaning of detached being attached. That, for example, I want my husband to help me with something. And suppose my husband says no. On one hand, I could get very hurt and I could feel helpless and what will I do and how will I manage? But if I'm detached yet attached, that also means that I'm dependent yet independent. So I can do that thing on my own as well, and that does not cluster me at all. So that's a small example of detached yet attached. Okay. So, so if there are no more questions, we can end the session here. And if you have any questions, feel free to send them to me. Through my different social media posts, I address different questions when people send them to me and make videos or content around that. Okay. So thank you everyone for joining in and have a great week ahead and take care. Good night. Bye.